Hi everyone, it's your old pal Darren here, aka FizzFop. I was on Facebook a while back and I came across a really cool page I wanted to share with everyone who watches my channel. This Facebook page was for the Shield G-Man Club. It's a tribute page to the Archie superhero. Back in the 1940s, a lot of heroes had fan clubs, and you could send in 10 to 25 cents to the publisher, and in return the publisher would usually send you a membership card and maybe a button or a cloth patch for your mom to sew on your jacket. Updates to these fan clubs would be mailed out to the members, or more often than not, the updates would be published in the comic books. And one aspect of these fan clubs was to publish the names and addresses of all the new members, and everyone in the fan club was encouraged to write each other and become pen pals. And as it sounds, it was an early form of social media. So now, Rick Offenberger, who is one of the authors of the Mighty Crusaders Companion, thought it would be fun to relaunch the Shield G-Man Club, and now, for the low price of a stamp, you can be a member of this prestigious club. I was recently accepted as a member. Let me rub it in by showing you some of the swell swag the club sent to me. First, there's a Shield G-Man Club button, very similar to the one given out in the 1940s. That'll look real nice on my tux the next time I go to the opera. I know, it's extra work for Jeeves, but then, that's what I'm paying him for. There's also a couple of bookmarkers. Of course, all my books have 14-karat gold leaf edging, so having a classy accoutrement is a style must. There's also some trading cards. Mind you, they're not monogrammed, but they are exclusive. And finally, there's a membership card signed by none other than my old prep school chum, Joe Higgins. Me and him are good friends, you know. Back at prep school, we were quite the scamps. If you do attempt to join the Shield G-Man Club, I feel that I must warn you that supplies are limited, and if you need a reference, come hit me up and we'll discuss the matter at the Polo. Yes, check out the Shield G-Man Club Facebook page. There's a 2018 kit that requires a self-addressed stamped envelope with 2 stamps on it, and there's a 2019 membership kit which only requires a stamp. Again, go back to the Shield G-Man Club Facebook page for more details. I've talked about the Shield before, but I'll do a quick recap and talk about some of the high points of this often ignored superhero. The Shield is the very first red, white, and blue superhero. He made his first appearance in Pep Comics #1. It has a cover date of January 1940, but the book actually hit the newsstands in late November of 1939. I know this because when I was a teenager, I would talk to old-timers about this book. The best story told to me was by a dealer who used to work a lot of the comic book shows in Northeast Ohio back in the 1980s. I noticed that he always had multiple copies of Pep Comics #1 on display, and I asked him about it. So he told me straight up it was his favorite comic book of all time. The first time he saw this book was on Thanksgiving Day in 1939. His dad promised him and his brother a treat if they behaved themselves on Thanksgiving Day because they were having all these relatives over. And after dinner, his dad pulled out this book. His dad and his granddad took turns reading it to him and his brother by a fireplace. He said it was one of his fondest memories of his childhood and the very moment he fell in love with comic books. If you ever come across older histories of comics like those written in the 1970s, they always print that this book came out in 1939-40. Newer histories of this book strictly say 1940, and that's sort of doing a disservice to the importance of this book. This is one of the reasons why I started doing Lost Heroes in the first place, because a lot of the history of comic books was never written down, and it's tiny little things like this that I fear is getting lost. As for the character himself, the Shield was the creation of writer-editor Harry Shorten and artist Irv Novick. Editor Harry Shorten had played both college and pro football before becoming a comic book editor. I tried to find his name in the Encyclopedia of Pro Football because they have lists of player rosters from that time period, and there's several teams he could have played for, but his name's not listed on any roster. But that really doesn't mean anything. A lot of football players played college ball on Saturday and then played pro football under an alias on Sundays. This way they could keep their college scholarship and make money on the side. This was a pretty common practice until after World War II. Back at the MLJ office, Shorten was a terror. He was known for walking through the office with a baseball bat and taking full swings that went dangerously close by people's heads, and he would do this to people particularly who were in his doghouse. Irv Novick was known for being a good-natured and competent artist. He worked at MLJ until the powers that be decided that the line would center around Archie and their humor titles. All of their superhero titles were phased out. Novick moved on and went into advertising. And after a few years, he returned to comics and started working at DC, where he drew Batman and The Flash. Later in his career, he worked on a lot of DC's war books like Sergeant Rock and G.I. Combat. Novick was one of pop artist Roy Lichtenstein's biggest inspirations, and several of his paintings are based on Novick's panel work. Novick received no money or credit for this, although I do believe Novick was the only comic book artist ever invited by Lichtenstein to attend the premiere of one of his art shows. From what I understand, Novick decided not to go. And finally, the biggest thing the Shield should be remembered for is that he's the inspiration for Captain America. In 1941, Timely Comics owner Martin Goodman plopped a stack of Pep and Shield Wizard comics on Joe Simon's desk and said, "I want one of these." 3 days later, Simon and Kirby had fleshed out Captain America. In the comic book industry, this is called a swipe. A swipe is basically a copy of someone else's work, and it can take many forms from tracing artwork to plagiarizing a story. And in this case, the swipe is the costume and the patriotic tone of the story. Very seldom did the swipe become more popular than the original, but in this case it did. And I think a large part of that had to do with Captain America being created by Simon and Kirby. They were probably the best tandem in comics during the Golden Age. Shorten and Novick are good, but they're nowhere near Simon and Kirby's level. Over the years, Archie has revived the superhero line multiple times, and each time the Shield has been the focal point of these revivals. The latest revival falls under the Dark Circle line. This incarnation features a gender-swapped character. I'm not a fan of the Dark Circle line or how they handled the Shield or the other Archie heroes, but that's a different video for a different time. Well, that's about it for me. Remember to check out the Shield G-Man Club Facebook page. So until next time, chin chin, true believers.